Hi, everybody, to our Reef Chat all about being on a deep sea research vessel. Excuse me. Thank you to our speakers of the day, Anne Hartwell and Ale de la Puente. Uh, our SOA partner, John, couldn't be here, but he sends his hellos to everybody. And before I forget, I also want to mention that if you want to learn more about the deep sea, the Sustainable Ocean Alliance has a deep sea academy. Without further ado, let's hear from our speakers. Anne, you're up.
Hello. Thank you for having me. My name's Anne Hartwell, and I am an oceanographer from New England in the United States. And I have my PhD and my master's both in oceanography, and I've done a lot of. Sorry, I have to just close the shade because the sun is coming in. I've done a lot of work on deep sea research vessels, both as a scientific role where I'm there to do research that I'm inquiring about, so questions that I brought to the ship, as well as an assistant role where I'm working with scientists who are doing different types of research that I'm kind of involved with, but they're not my ideas, so like an assistant role. And I have also done a lot of trips where I've been an ocean mapper and a navigator using underwater robots, and so that role is more assisting in making sure you know where your ship is and trying to collect data about what the bottom is shaped like, as well as then using robots that you can deploy from the ship to get a closer look at the bottom of the ocean using cameras and lights, and you can take different samples. So I my personal research that I focus on in the deep sea is I look at octopus ecology and different community compositions, and how those communities associate with environmental variables. So, for instance, looking at what types of shapes. So, if it's like the flat seafloor versus like a really a lot of dramatic topography on the seafloor, what types of animals you would see on one versus the other, and trying to understand using like a statistical analysis if there's any relationship there. We try to avoid the word correlation because correlation can be a dangerous, misleading factor. But I try to understand, how the environment is shaping the community that's living there. So one of the organisms that I focused on a lot in my work is octopuses, and the the study site that I was looking at is a mile and a half, or almost 2 miles below the ocean surface, and I had the opportunity to dive there in a submersible Alvin. And what we saw were like very dense aggregations. So at the site that I first studied, it was hundreds of octopuses clustered together, and they're about the size of a bocce ball or a softball.
Yeah.
And they were all clustered together on locations of the seafloor where there's this really, it's it's warm water, but it's not warm water like you run your faucet and you're like, oh, I'd wash my hands in this. It's warm water like it's not freezing. So you think about like the bottom of the ocean is cold, like 4 degrees Celsius. In this water that the octopuses is living in is like 11 degrees Celsius. So it's just warmer than the background. And these octopuses had eggs, and part of my investigation was trying to understand, why these octopuses were occurring, in that environmental situation. Again, looking at the connections between the environment and the organisms living there. But some of the other projects that I've been involved with besides that community kind of assessment is looking at what's happening below the ocean surface. So you think about the ocean you can see when you're at the beach and you look out, and dolphins and whales and turtles and all the cool stuff at the shallow in the light in the photic zone. But then as you get deeper and deeper and deeper, it starts to get really, really dark and cold. And so a lot of my research is focused in that area. But then if you go even deeper below that, so into the sediment and into the rocks, there's quite a bit of life that lives down there. It's just very, very tiny. It's like microbial life. And there's also quite a bit of activity with respect to like water flowing through the sediments and through the rocks, and some of the ways that we can understand what that, how that life is energized or contributing to the surroundings, and kind of the direction of that flow and the temperature of that flow and the chemistry of that flow, is there are these monitoring systems, literally like places in the seafloor where we've poked giant holes and essentially stuck like a ginormous straw down it. And in that straw, they'll send what they call an instrument package, which is basically just like a necklace full of equipment, and they stick it down this hole, and it's quite much more sophisticated than I'm making it sound. And they'll leave it, for basically when they can get funding again. So hopefully a couple years, and it will either collect samples or there'll be monitors inside, and then the ship goes back and we'll do a recovery effort, and you bring it to the surface, and then the scientists can look at what's happening underwater. So I've been on missions where we've been doing that type of work. I've been on other expeditions where we're just using the sonar. So a sonar is an instrument that sends sound from the bottom of a ship. It bounces off the seafloor back to the ship, and then based on a known factor, which is the speed of sound, we can, and the time it takes for it to get from the ship and back, or from the ship to the seafloor and back, we can then calculate the depth of the ocean floor, and that's how we get these really beautiful, like behind me is this picture of a place on the seafloor where you see the blue is a really deep area, and we were going over a bump on the seafloor, and so the data gets really, 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 really dense, and we would do this multiple times and we make a whole image. But some of the work I do is literally just on the ship, where we don't put anything overboard. We're not collecting any instruments. We're not deploying any robots. No one's going down in submersibles. We're just sending sound from the bottom of the ship and collecting it back. And so the deep sea, you might be taking away, wow, this is like a lot of different stuff I'm talking about, because the research in the deep sea is such a wide breadth of questions and so many different exploration methods that we can use to try to understand what's going on. And we only know like a fraction of information about the deep sea of our own Earth, whereas we have the entire surface of Mars mapped to a very high resolution. And so there's so many questions that we still have to learn. But I'm going to kind of leave it at that. And if anybody has any questions, I'm going to flip it over to Allie.
Thank you. I'm going to share the screen because about this this experiment of the sonar. Is it sharing? Yes. Yeah, here. Hello, I'm Alia de la Puente. I'm from Mexico City, and I was artist in residence in the last travel expedition of the Falcor, before the Falcor 2, no, with the Schmidt Ocean Institute. It was 2021 or 22, I guess. I don't remember, because it was the time of the pandemic. So it was a really interesting time to be in a vessel. And during that expedition, it was my first encounter with oceanography. Even I have been working a lot with scientists, but especially with physicists and astronomers. My work is very multidisciplinary, and I mixed a lot of scientific knowledge with history and mythology, and my approach is more of in how we question what we know. And this drawing I'm showing, I did this drawing. It's a very small drawing. I did it during the residency through this experiment of the sonar, because they were doing a research on the hydrothermal chimneys on the seafloor of the Mar de Cortez on the Gulf of California. So when there are bubbles, they say, I call the scientists the bubbles researchers because they were looking for bubbles to see if there were more chimneys, no? And the bubbles were the source of the bubbles, like make the bathymetry, these sonar lines make some black holes where you cannot see the data of the depth of the seafloor. So it's like kind of the vessel was doing this drawing, no? The ship is doing the drawing on the sea of making this, and suddenly something happens that make a distortion of the navigation line. And it comes from that. I start doing all these kind of drawings that were part of the project that I started there. And actually, as a multidisciplinary artist, I draw, I do sculpture, I do video and installations and machines. It doesn't matter the medium, no? But in the vessel, when you don't know anything and you suddenly are there, it's like suddenly you have to do whatever is there, like to start moving the mind. And because I was working before with astronomers, especially, and working in observatories, as what you said, and we know more about the surface of Mars or the moon, no, before learning the bottom of the sea. In that residency, Dr. C from some place in California, I don't remember, I don't know when to say badly the name of the institute, but we were talking and he said to me, like, and I asked him how much we know about the seafloor. And he said, like, we know like 0.0000, and he says 00, and he went away. No. And the next day in the morning, he will say like 000, and the next day he will say like while talking and 00. And the last day when we say goodbye, he said like when we embrace to say goodbye, like okay, goodbye, he said 1%. We know nothing. No, it was lovely because it's really a place that usually it's the same thing as ourselves. We know nothing about ourselves. We go deep inside and we discover terrible things and things that are completely different. And it depends on the point of view. So after that, it started to make like some kind of different ways to think about what we know. And these drawings are big drawings of 2 meters by something, and are the lines and these holes, but they look like something is falling, but it changes when you do the drawing and put it in horizontal. It looks like speed. So it depends on where we look at. For me, going down was not going down or not going inside, but going to a place that is unknown, that is we're passing a threshold, a horizon that we are sometimes, when you are in the boat in the research, during the residency, I feel that we were the horizon of something that you don't know where it's going to reach after that, no? So then I start to work with the things that don't interact with the sonar. So that's the gold leaf, and then so we start doing first drawings, but then this happened in this research. They were one of the geologists from Baja California, from Ensenada. He was looking for a rock. He wanted to take out a rock, no? And for me, it was like suddenly a stone came out to be a rock, no? Like information there. And he wanted to have like a rock of the side of Baja California that is a part of the same, when they were joined together, Baja California and the continent. So it's like, okay, it's like going to the moon and not bringing back a rock. We want to have like, we have samples of this side of the world, of the continent, but we don't have samples from the other side, and we want to see if they match. So it's like looking for the other part, no, of it. And we were looking, while going to do research, we were looking in like in the seafloor. It was kind of a desert. There were no rocks at all. Suddenly you find a bunch of rocks, and then there's so much life there. It's like an island. And the Sebastian, the robot, was taking just one in the hand and suddenly move it to make like all, and it looks like a comet, and it's going inside, you know. And then we have many samples, and then they bring it up, and suddenly it was like a kind of a, oh, but how long have they been underwater? It's like their whole life, more than 2 million years. What is going to happen to them? Nothing. They're going to dry. It's like that. But it's like, for me, it was like suddenly something was giving birth. No, it's like, and they talk, and they arrived with these instruments that measure the radiation. I don't remember how it's the name of that thing. And this rock that I had in my hand had a little bit of radiation. No? And they say, oh, this is radioactive. Someone says, like, but how much? No, but it's safe. We can keep it. And then say, like, but how safe? And he said, let me do the math. And then they say, like, okay, if you sleep with that rock more than 50 years in your heart, like this, you will die. No? It's like, okay, that I can do that. No, it's like, it's okay. I I love the approach of like suddenly this thing has something that can affect you, but was living on the ground, but at the same time, it blows your mind of something. And all of the scientists, the geologists, came to the rocks to touch them, to smell them, to feel their surface, to learn about them, to see the colors. And it's like suddenly something so tiny tells so much about something so big, you know. And for me, it was like better than going to the moon and bring a rock that usually the moon is like really, it's a place that I'm not willing to go because it's black, it smells awful, and there's no there's no sky, there's no life, there's not so much things that we have like on the seafloor, no? So, and the other part of the what I enjoy a lot in that residency that I want to share with you, and I make a video out of it, a video installation. This is part of the video installation. Was like I was being able to use the cameras with the pilots of the Sebastian and everything while it's going down to the seafloor, because the research was going to be on the seafloor. So the scientists are not using that part for the research. So I was being able to be part of it and using it. And no, it's not here. So all the time going down, when it's going down, most of the part, this thing that they call nieve marina, the marine snow that is falling, is like traveling in the universe. This kind of little particles that is floating. It's like I never imagined so full of things, this mid ocean that is nothing there, and suddenly there was something little thing, and the call was said biology, and they go forward and look to it, and suddenly you find like things like this biology that is kind of like a galaxy, or no, like this kind of like these ones. And it's like suddenly it's like, and people when they see this, no, they will say like they look like spaceships, and it's like, no, sorry, I have to correct you. Spaceships looks like this. No, this comes first. No, it's like we are not imagining something else. And this video is like 66 minutes long, but most of the time the biology that you get is less than a minute, and I have only 17 creatures in the video. So, and in some of them are only 10 seconds, 50 seconds, and that's it. The rest is only the marine snow. And what I am surprised, like, you really stay. Like, even for me, it's like, okay, it's so delicious to look at this. And also I did the work for this with a group of people, the creator, a composer, and a designer, and others. We create the music together. The composer helped me to do all this part of the work, and but it was like all together what we are looking at, and we create a composition for all this, and it's kind of pulls you inside, and that's the feeling when you are there, no? And it was part of a show that I want to show you here, of this show that is called the 5th of April of 15,232. That work was started that almost at the same time that I have the residency, so it informs the both things that I was working with. The 5th of April of the year 15,232 is going to happen a celestial phenomena that haven't seen before by a human being. That is the transit of Venus and a total eclipse of the sun simultaneously. So it started Venus transit, and then started the moon making the shadow and the total eclipse, and it's going to be seen from Baja California. That's what the calculation of the scientists are saying. No? So for that show, it's thinking about, and because the residency was in the Gulf of California too, and it's all about looking at the future, where geologically is not too much time. It's 13,000 years, nothing in geological time, no? And for the ocean, maybe it's not going to be much of a difference. It depends also, obviously, in human beings. But it's hard for us to imagine ourselves in 13,000 years like human beings if we don't imagine us as cyber something or a apocalypse, no? And I think my sample is like the ocean is something that gives me kind of a hope of, if I can say hope, of kind of a place that I go to that place and everything that I have seen during the residency, where this project have a lot of subtitles because it was 3 different exhibitions and some concerts. And in this one that is called El Infinito Fracasado, that means that the infinite has a failure. But more than a negative thing for me is that inside of the ocean, the infinite has failed because it is infinite what it happens there, but it is contained. And that's the same infinite that exists as a possibility inside of each of us. So for me, the residency opened a lot of kind of questions that are more like kind of philosophical questions that I can approach through my work, but also at the same time with all the input of the scientists and the collaboration and everything. And as we were talking just a little bit before we started this recording, I was saying, like, for me, it's very important, like trying to go back with the knowledge of how it is done, because I have a background where I study boat building too, and I do navigation, but small sailboats, and it's not like going in a research vessel and suddenly it's like all these things. And at the same time, we were 80 people approach. I don't remember exactly the amount of people we were in the vessel, but it's big enough that you can be by yourself if you need that time, but small enough that you can share and see everybody and say hello every day. And everything was very nice, and we get along very well. And I'm not sure if that happens because we know that we were stuck there and there was no escapatory, or because we really it's contained, but we are stuck also here on Earth, and there's no escapatory as well. How big is it? How small or how big the place should be for we to get along? And for me, that starts a lot of how we relate in the place, and all the instruments and technology and everything that brings you so much inputs of what we can do. No? And in that way, I want to show you one other piece that came out of it, and this one that is that for me was about how to bring closer. This is like for me is bring closer the horizon. The horizon. I love to be in a place where in the in the ocean where you don't have land on sight. I love that feeling, no? That you can see only the line of the horizon. But here is in the Mexico City, in the roof of a building, where you can see the mountains around when there's no pollution, but it's how can you bring closer your horizon so you can feel it close, no? So it's difficult to bring the waves, but these are stones and they become like this kind of horizon that you can see the whole world in a stone, and then you can feel like you can be there, and as you see it's like this place, and when you're standing inside it's suddenly the the perspective of the dimensions of the macro and the micro and the world around you changes. So that's what I wanted to share. So we can go to questions and go.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. Whoever wants to go first, but question for Anne is being a scientist on a research vessel, and especially what makes you excited to study. What are the, I don't know, the most exciting things for you when you go on a research vessel? And what are things maybe that you wish people knew about it? Or maybe what are some of the weird things that, if you hadn't had that experience, I would have never thought of how it changes your work, or I don't know, anything that's sort of in that sense. And then in a similar way, Ali, you talked about about the first time being on a research vessel as an artist, kind of what that was like for you. And then what are the things that now you wish you have known then, now that you think about it in hindsight and wanting to go back?
I'll go first. So, I guess one of the things that I love about the research, especially the stuff that I get to do for my questions and then the mapping, is that especially with the mapping, it's you're kind of like the first ones there. It's like the first time that they're getting this high resolution multi-beam data. It's the first time that we're getting an image of like a seamount that maybe we kind of knew there was a gravity anomaly there based on satellite imagery. But then you go and you're like, oh, it's shaped like a perfect circle, or it's actually a gyro, so it has like a flat top, or it's just there's so many like unknown, like intricate details, and I really love being like literally watching the lines get made. Like Ali was showing like that the art of how it like creates the picture as you sit in the boat and you like watch the data come in. You're like, this is the like I'm the first eyeballs, unless someone's like up watching a live stream of it, which people do. And I really that is like super exciting. I also like in a more like kind of a inner like peace way. I just feel very connected to the ocean in like the most like cheesy way you can imagine. So it's like calming and I like love it. I just feel like at home and really balanced when I'm out there. So I love that. Um, and I there's just a thrill. It's like Ali described it really well. It's like the ships are kind of big enough that you can be alone, but they're also small enough that you have like a community. And so usually the expeditions I go on are typically about 30 days. And sometimes they overlap with holidays, and sometimes it's like people that you have sailed before. And so you just kind of develop a community, and sometimes you don't get along, and that's okay. Ship drama is always entertaining. Um, but sometimes it's really just copacetic, and it's you'll get off the ship and be like, that was like a transformative experience because of the people and the dynamics and everyone being so nerdily excited about like like a rock, like Ali was saying, like or like you get like a speck of sample that like can fit in like on the tip of your finger, and it's like this is huge, or you find those like bubbles, and it's like this is just what we want, and then you'll try hours to try to get a sample, and maybe you don't get it, and there's actually kind of a lot of disappointment. But it's I don't know, like there's a lot of perseverance and just kind of like stuff always goes wrong at sea. Like always. I was describing like how we stick those instruments down that straw and then we recover them. Well, on one expedition we went to recover it and that necklace broke halfway through, and so they did not recover half of their instruments. That's like millions of dollars and years of data just gone. And another time they were going to launch a robot, and line broke and oil just started spewing like everywhere, like something out of Monty Python, like a comical spray. But it was actually really devastating. But, you know, we like still managed to get stuff done and no one like broke, you know, like it's just a really, it's a unique environment. And I think that that's one of the things that I'd like people to understand is that when we're at sea, it's kind of high stakes because you want to get as much done as you can in this relative, like 30 days sounds like a long time, but when you've applied for a grant years before, gotten your ship time, managed to get all your ducks in order, that everyone's there, everyone's healthy, especially through COVID, all of your equipment's arrived, all of your equipment is working, the weather's okay enough for you to actually do the stuff you want to do. If it all aligns, then it's great. But most of the time, it's like you're just kind of like, okay, I hope it goes well. Like it might not, and if it doesn't, like I have to just be able to roll with it and figure out a way around it. I like all that stuff.
Great. See, I think I like a lot that same thing of like trying to do everything in just that moment, because my experience, for example, with other technologies outside of the ocean, no, like in the observatories and there, you have more time, even though you have certain window of time during the night. Sometimes, okay, it's raining and it's cloudy and you cannot do anything, no? So it's like, okay, then what's next? But here it's almost like do everything you can with what you have, like even with the accidents, no? There was one moment when the Sebastian went down that there was a trouble with the cable, and the cable was like also like $1 million. And it's like, okay, but we have to go forward, no? They were still saying, and the measurements and all the temperature taking of the places around the hydrothermal chimneys. But to answer the question, what I wanted to know is like, even if you know it, like because they sent me information, it's not the same as when you are there. It's because it's kind of an experience that it's like trying to learn to swim in the ground. And the first time you go to the water, just like, okay, I learned like I have to do this movement. No, it's like, it really doesn't matter if you know first, because it's not going to be the experience like that. Like even just to be in the room where all the screens are for doing for piloting the Sebastian, no, the rover, like even though knowing what the experiments was going to be about and the laboratory and equipment, it was like the first encounter with them. So no, sometimes it is like it's hard to make a decision of what you can take out of them, or what you can do with that experience to make an artwork in the place or with that information without experiencing it first. Like I have been in a residency at CERN in the collider in the Hadron Collider at CERN in Switzerland. And one of the models that doesn't apply here in the same way is that you go first, visit, do everything, you have information, you go home. And then after a couple of months, you go back because it's too much information, so you can really work on it. And here it was everything. I was like not exhausted, but overwhelmed of everything. And at the same time, for example, the nights you are not doing much work at night, no? But the nights and the skies are so amazing. I have a work that don't have the pictures here that I took there, that it was the first time I saw the sea was completely like a mirror. And we can see the moon rising and Venus was setting. And you can see the moon and Venus at the same time. And both of them had their shining in the water. And just the idea that it was the first time for me to see like the reflection of a planet in the sea, it was really like amazing. So I just took pictures. They are not the greatest, but for me, is these two pictures have like a sense of what we are like. Venus could be seen underwater, no? Just all those ideas started to come with that. Okay, I could work on a project to go and do a research. No, depends on which is the research. This one was more about geology, no, and also it informs a lot. But it's really even knowing before it won't be like easy. No? I don't know if it answers the question.
Yeah, and if everybody any has some questions, feel free to unmute yourself or write them in the chat, and I can also read them over you guys. I forgot to mention that today as well. And question for you: what is the most your favorite like technology gadget thing stuff, I don't know, that you only get to use on a research vessel that like gets you excited? Because I mean, to my understanding, research vessels like vary, but a lot of money goes into because lots of things have to happen in a very short amount of time that I don't know, some of those resources may or may not be outside of that environment. So I'm just curious of if that's something that applies to that.
Um, I I love a fancy robot. So I actually I will say the disclaimer. Um I got to I like I said, I dove on a submarine, and that experience of like going down and seeing the vibrance of like colors in the depths of a very dark cold ocean just like blew me away. I mean, it was like changed the trajectory of all of my research, and it's what I focused my PhD on. I was like, this is cool. And I'm not sure I ever would have like had that had I not been there and experienced in that. So that was like just special that the robots will never actually get. But with a little robot, and you get, usually you have one arm that's just a dumb arm that literally just picks things up, but you have a dexterous arm, and it's got a little claw that can do all sorts of cool manipulations, and you can put really great cameras on it with lots of views and like really high 4K resolution, probably higher than that by now. And then you can put these super, super, super high resolution sonars on it. So there's a lot of different types of multi-beams, and depending on the depth of the water that you're looking at, or the um, kind of the detail that you want to look at the seafloor is going to dictate what type of instrument you choose. But the closer you are to the seafloor, the smaller the sonar can be, which means the denser the data, and so you can get like very, very, very detailed pictures. And so we can stick one of those on a robot, and we can just get like this beautiful like map and this beautiful photos, and sometimes we can get samples. So I just like love a fancy robot. I don't remember what the rest of your question was. I started thinking about like my ideal robot, and then I just got excited.
I can add something. Yes, really the robot, for example, and one thing I wish I had known because I would have think about it, no? It's like just like the idea of how things can shrink down there because of the pressure of the sea when the robot goes very down, no? And how I did I have like 5 minutes that they say, okay, you can do something with a robot, no? And because I was not doing the science, but the artist in residency. And what we did is with one thing that they have in the hand, like kind of a stick, is just drawing a line we try to draw a circle down there in the seafloor, but it didn't look like a circle. So I decided to draw just like a line. And it's so beautiful because then suddenly it disappears. And it's like a kind of making a drawing in time, in a place that it will go away. But it was like this just line draw that doesn't divide anything. No, it's a kind of, and it's amazing. The robot is amazing. It's really, and it's high technology that is like, well, all the things we can see that we wouldn't be able, like in the hydro chimney, there's a sometimes like for me was fascinating that you can see the water, no, because of it comes 180 degrees and suddenly it's like you can see it comes out of the chimney, and there are bubbles that got like it's the difference of the water you can see, and it's kind of if there are bubbles trapped in little caves. And with the robot, you can see, and it's like seeing mirrors. But that mirrors, we will never be able to reflect on them. But you can see the mirrors of something, and then all these creatures. And the other thing is like, they told me that it was almost like about 8 biology that it's new for us. Every time they go in a research or an expedition, at least 8 new things that we discover. And I wish I would have known that, because also it's like they have to put names of that. And suddenly the names are like, okay, the blue with 8 legs. No, it's like, no, be more creative, please. No, you have me here. No, let's bring up some names. No, so it was kind of very interesting. And this, yes, this robot is amazing to bring like these samples and bring them up and then seeing it, and the camera in the laboratory where they have to put it on pressure so they don't disappear, some of the biology and everything. It's amazing that we can go down there in any way to reach that place. No?
One of the things that is crazy about the technology is some of the cruises that I go on, the whole point of it is to be testing a new technology. And so you don't necessarily you might have one new technology interest in 2023, and then by 2026 it's completely obsolete and they've developed something totally different. But one of the neatest ones that they're constantly working on improving is samplers that would enable us to collect soft-bodied organisms, because when you pick something up and it's squishy, and we use the robot manipulator arms can have pretty sensitive touch, right? So they can get delicate things, but they also are robots, and so you don't know how hard it's going to squeeze. And gelatinous organisms can sometimes break up or not travel well. And so some of the new sampling technology for soft-bodied organisms is... Sorry, this is my daughter.
Hello.
For soft-bodied organisms is really interesting.
That's interesting, because the Monterey Bay Sea Aquarium has a deep sea exhibit, right? And those guys had to come from somewhere, and I'm guessing they probably chose the guys that were easier to come up rather than the ones that were more challenging. But Ale, that made me wonder, like, if there's an artist that is interested in this intersection of science and art, and what would be your advice to them on doing something like the Artists at Sea program, or working with scientists on site in a moving boat?
For me, it would have been very interesting, and I think that's what I try to do when I work with scientists in special places. No, I try to meet them first, because it's the curvature of meeting and getting to know and everything. Suddenly you're leaving. No, so one thing that I would do is like have at least online meetings, so you can know what they are going to do and how you are going to approach it before going. That thing, I think it would make up the time a better way to make the most of it. No, one of the things. And the other thing is that what is amazing is that you become in the best while you are in a vessel, in a research vessel. There's so much questions, and at the same time, all those questions, you can be reduced to the same one, that who are we, no? And who are we down there? So it's like kind of to remember that, no? It doesn't matter which nationality, where place, no? Which kind of a speciality has those scientists, but at the same time, we have like this willing to know and to expand our knowledge that may answer, why are we here?
And I don't know, if I know there's different artists at program Cs. There's some like communications programs from some other vessels that sometimes spring over other people to learn about it. I don't know if you had any interaction with some of these peeps before or not, but from a scientist point of view, what is something that you'd like for people that are in those programs, the artists at sea or the science communication, that may be their first time on the research vessel, something that what type of things you'd like them to know, or any wisdom from a science person working in those research vessels?
I guess that one of the main things is I've sailed with a couple of artists. One was an author, and then some of the when I sail on the Nautilus, the exploration vessel Nautilus, there will be the science communicators are often educators, and that I feel like that tightly ties to artists because many of them are doing art when they're out there. And feel like I'm always actually learning from them because they always have like different really cool mediums that they're working with, and it's like, oh wow, you can do that like neat thing on a ship. Like who would have thought of that? I don't know. I mean, I guess that one of the things that I tell them is that they fascinate me. Like what you can come up with from, I look at things and it's pretty academic. When I'm looking at the ocean, I'm like, oh, I wonder what temperature that is and how buoyant that is and why that's floating. I'm like thinking about that stuff. And so it always, like, personally, I just think it's really helpful to get a person's perspective who isn't thinking about it so technically, and they're like, well, if you look at it from this different views, like what could it mean when you take it out of that like academic sense of like, just a more holistic kind of a not so textbook, but more in like a fundamental, like bigger view. And sometimes some of the questions as a scientist that we always are forced to answer is, how does this relate back to people? Like why is this important? And seeing artists come on the ship and educators come on the ship and interact with it and then communicate it back out in a totally different way, that sometimes is really helpful for me to be like, oh, this is how it connects to the general population, and not just like octopuses living 2 miles below the surface that really like we can't eat and that no one can really relate to.
I have a scientist, an astronomer, once was make him the question. Someone asked him in a question in a talk like, what? Okay, we know what artists can get from scientists, but what scientists gets from artists? And it was really like for me, like, yes, I really want to know, no? And he said, like, we want to learn something and we go from A to B to C to D. We have a method and we do it this way. Artists may start in A and end up in purple or in a number. It doesn't matter where. And that freedom to go around of something that you usually don't know where it's going to drive you. You may have an idea, but suddenly it comes to something else. It opens possibilities to questions, no? And it gives I think it was very refreshing for both of all of the people that are involved when we are in contact between disciplines, because we are sharing different points of view to see the same question, no? Like even with an octopus, like I'm really now like we saw one octopus. I have a video of that one in the first meters that we were going down, and it was amazing. And we saw also a kind of a squid, but full of eggs, like kind of something that he was carrying up, and it was so like, what is that? And then so suddenly we were asking, and some of the scientists said like what it was, the name, everything, the scientific name. And for me, it was like, this looks like blah, 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 blah. And it's all these metaphors, and people were having fun. No, it's like kind of a way to share how we view the world. No, and from it, I don't know what is going to come out.
I really like how you brought up the word fun, because I feel like whether you're an artist or a scientist, once you're very focused on your practice and your research, I mean, we all get into that mental space where we forget to have fun with it, right? And it comes to a point where it's like trying to achieve something, right? If you're an artist, you're trying to create a piece. If you're a scientist, you're trying to do your research or a finding. But I think having that element of awe and fun and surprise, I think that enriches both. And I think that's the beauty of maybe also just being in that enclosed space. I don't know if more the average is 30 days or more or less on a research vessel. You guys can let me know, but I feel that being in that sort of like a liminal space, right? It's just it's somewhere that you're out in the middle of the ocean, probably moving in ways you've never moved before. It gives you open to that experience. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, it's quite fun. I think mostly like there's a lot of just excitement and buzz when you're on the ship. When things are tense, like when you're trying to get work done, a lot of times it's like it's a work hard, play hard mentality most of the time, and that's nice because everyone wants to get stuff done, so most people are very focused. And then by the end of the cruise, once you get all your stuff done, like that's when you can really, I don't know, it's easier to sit back and be like, okay, now I'm gonna like actually just enjoy the sunset instead of like trying to like crunch these numbers, or get these samples analyzed. But depending, that just to speak to the length of the cruises, oftentimes it depends on how where you're researching. So some like there was a cruise where we had like a multi-day transit out, which means you're literally on a boat for like a couple days, and you're not diving, you're not like doing it. You can do stuff if you bring your own work, but it's not like related to the mission per se. And so those are pretty fun. The transits are pretty fun.
Yes, I think the fun it should be like when we were kids, no? You play with the seriousness of like if I'm going to play to be like a warrior, I'm very serious to be that, no? When I'm a kid. So I'm still playing to be an artist, I'm playing to be a scientist or playing to be here and enjoying it and be serious in how you play it, and then that makes it fun. And but yes, the capacity that we have to be awed by something else when you share that, no, there was one day that we have several beautiful sunsets and these things, but there was one day that it was so beautiful, the sky, that everybody came up to the deck because we were like really like saying like this is why we do it, no, because we're sharing this. So it was like really incredible like sunset, but all the all the clouds and the colors, and there was raining far away, and there were dolphins. It was so full of everything that we all were like, okay, I couldn't even take a picture because it's like, okay, I really just want to be here and enjoy it, and seeing everybody feeling the same amaze, being amazed by the world we live in, just that it makes it really worth it, no? And about the time, I I usually try to forget how much time I was because it can be like just like a breath in times of geology, but it can be it was so significant when something an experience is so significant. It doesn't matter how much time it lasts. It lasts when it was significant. You know?
That's a beautiful way of saying that, Ali. Thank you. Well, you guys are up on our time to respect each other's time. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank Ale and Anne for sharing their knowledge and experience with us. And if there are any questions that we didn't get to, shoot us a message and I'll make sure I'll get them to them and add them after the recording. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Have a wonderful night, day, evening, wherever you're in the world. Thank you
Thanks
so
so
much.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah. Thank you.